What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of 10 Second Gems, the 10 Second Gems podcast. Man, I'm smiling from ear to ear right now because I got a really great co-host on with me for today's episode. He's a really good friend, an amazing audio engineer, and I'll just let you introduce yourself, man. Take it away, brother. It's all yours.
Name is Isaac Moreno, born and raised in Southern Cal. A lot of pretty close to where you hung out, man.
Right.
But now I live here in Kansas City, working for a recording studio. I was working for a recording studio. Now I got my own place, getting ready to build out a space for myself here in my home. And but yeah, man, that's I've done some cool stuff, pushed some buttons for some really cool people.
Right.
Made some sounds.
Come on, man. Drop the resume, bro.
Wait, man.
Let's go.
You don't drop names. I mean, and you want me to drop names? Come on, bro. Come on.
Nah, man. Drop some of them accolades, bro. Stop being shy. You know what I mean?
Some of my accolades. All right. So, I've done work for Disney. I've done work for DreamWorks, Lucasfilm, Warner Brothers. I've done stuff for Marvel. I've worked in the Christian music industry,
Right.
pretty much extensively, but I've done stuff with KJ52. I've done stuff with you. I've done stuff with Michael Tate from Newsboys. I've done stuff with Seventh Day Slumber, Super Chick. Mm-hmm. And on the secular side, I've done stuff with John Mayer. I've done stuff with Third Eye Blind, Good Charlotte. I've had some amazing opportunities and some amazing doors that have opened up for me.
Don't skip over the video games, bro. Don't forget about
the video
that.
games. So Batman: Arkham Asylum.
I'm trying to impress our listeners with my circle of friends here, man.
Hey, bro, you have an impressive friend circle. As far as video games, I've worked on, there was one that's called Ride 1 and 2, Sebastian Loeb's Rally Car, Batman Arkham Asylum. That's like all the Lego Star Wars video games.
Right.
I've worked on the Lego Star Wars cartoons, stuff like that. So, yeah.
What's that like to get a phone call for a project of that size? Like, not only what does it feel like, but I mean, you're in Kansas City, right? Are you
Right.
working remotely with these guys? I know they're in LA sometimes. How's that all work?
Yeah, most of the time the actors live, near me. So a lot of the times what happens is the actors, they hate LA. They hate going out there. So they would rather do stuff from, where they live, where they're based out of.
Right.
So getting the call, the first phone call, I remember the first time I had just moved back to Kansas City. I was living in Nashville, and there was a season in my life where things changed, and we ended up moving back to Kansas City. And I ended up working for a studio that I grew up in, basically. I cut my teeth there, and the owner was like my mentor. And he told me, if you ever move back to Kansas City, I have a job for you. So we eventually moved back to Kansas City, and I probably was there no more than a month or something. And we get this phone call from a gentleman named by the name of Tom Kane. And I hear his voice, and I'm like, wow, man, that sounds really familiar. And as I get to know him, what ends up happening is he basically says, look, I need to record this stuff. I just don't know how to sync audio to video. And my background, I had done some of that, but I really wasn't good at it. So I told the guys, like, look, I will figure it out. And yes, we will take the job. And he goes, okay. He goes, I'm not sure what it is yet. He goes, I'll have some people get in contact with you. So they shoot me over the script. Well, they first shoot over an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement.
For those people out there that don't know what that means, can you break that down for us?
So what that means is you can't talk about anything that you see or hear.
Right.
Or you can get in some legal trouble. So no pictures, no nothing, no mention on social media. You are literally tight-lipped until the product has been released. Then you are free to say something. Now, most NDAs will vary from project to project, but at least this one said I couldn't say anything until the project had been released.
Okay.
So I get the copy of the script once I sign the NDA, and I'm a bit of a nerd. I like, I grew up liking Star Wars and all that kind of stuff, and I get the script, and it's a script for Lego Star Wars. So I start freaking out, and I'm like, who's this guy, Tom Kane? What does he do? So I start researching him. Come to find out, he's the voice of Yoda for all the Clone Wars stuff, and so I am totally geeking out. But now I got to figure out how to sync audio and video so that he could record his lines here in Kansas City. So, man, I spent days researching and studying how to do ADR work.
Right.
And after that session, I mean, I impressed, Lucasfilm enough to where they're like, you know what? We'll continue to keep coming to you for things like this. When Tom doesn't want to fly to LA or is not in LA, we are definitely going to use you again. And so I would say, if you don't know how to do something, study how to do it, dig deep, and reach out to people.
That's a gem right there, right? So, not to cut you off or anything, but there's a gem right there. So, how would we phrase that into a gem? You didn't know how to do something right, and then you wanted the job, so...
Man, I researched as much as I possibly could. I really dug in, and I tried to call people that could at least help me or at least give me insight.
Right.
And there really wasn't anybody out there. So luckily, I had found a couple videos online that were referencing to it, but nothing really, like, hey, this is how you do it. This is how you set it up.
Yeah.
So I didn't even have the, before you sync audio, there's in video, you'll do a clap, right? You'll clap off to sync up your audio. Well, in audio, when you're doing audio for video, you have the ADR beeps. And I didn't even have the ADR beeps at the time. And the guy from the other studio, great guy. I mean, he was a gem of a person. He just said, hey, man, don't worry about it. We're going to get through it together. And he goes, here's your file of ADR beeps. So I went through, man, I set up that session. I had the whole thing laid out, ready to go.
Dope.
And but yeah, as far as the gem is concerned, man, just reach out. Find people that are better than you at what you're trying to do. Yeah. And ask questions. And don't be afraid to fail.
Right. See, I always tell my students that it's more about getting up under people that know what they're doing.
Yeah.
That, you know what I mean? If that means that you got to sweep floors, get coffee, whatever you got to do to get under them people and learn, you know what I mean?
Legit, exactly what you just said there. I know you were just going to ask me if I went to school. I did go to school. I did go to college. My background a little bit is I actually grew up in a recording studio. My dad always had a recording studio in the house. So, I mean, that was kind of, I lived and breathed it. But, back when I was doing it, we still had reel to reel. We were working on tape. So, cutting tape and splicing tape together and stuff like that. So I learned on that. But when I say I learned, I didn't have knowledge. I just watched my dad do what he did and just kind of copied it, but never understood. Eventually, I ended up going to college, and they had an audio engineering program. And the teacher literally said a couple phrases. The professor said a couple phrases up at the beginning of class concerning equalization. We were studying equalization. And when he said these couple phrases, just like pop, 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 all these terminals in my head just started connecting. It was like, it all makes sense.
Right.
I get it now. And
connecting dots, basically.
Yeah, it just, all the dots started connecting. And so I went through that class, but the teacher told me, he said, listen, he goes, all your exams are coming back perfect. He goes, it's like you understand this stuff. He said, my recommendation for you, he goes, to challenge you is how well can you teach what you know?
Okay.
And so my grade was dependent on bringing other students into the studio and teaching them how to use the studio.
Right.
So that was how I got my grades. Once I graduated, I say graduated, it was only a semester program. But once that semester was done, he literally told me, he said, look, you just need to go out and go find a job. He goes, you just need to go find a studio and figure this out. Fast forward, a couple of years, I end up finding this recording studio because I was touring with this band. And they were like, hey, man, we got to get into a studio. We were living in Kansas City at the time. And they were like, man, we need to get into the studio. We need to do some work. And so I started calling around, and I'm like, yo, this place has got Pro Tools. Man, I studied Pro Tools in college. And at that time, it was only a 4-channel program. And this studio actually had, a multi-track, like even larger than 4 tracks. And the way I got into that studio was I told them, listen, I'll clean toilets. I'll vacuum the studio. I'll clean up after every session. I'll roll up cables. I'll come in and I'll do the setup. You don't have to pay me. Just, I'm willing to do whatever it takes so that I can be in this space.
Yeah.
And the owner of the studio, he says, you know what? He goes, that's great. He goes, let's do that. So I would show up and just clean and get coffee, go out and get lunch for people, whatever it was, whatever he needed, I did. Then he moved me into a role where he says, you know what? He goes, I'd like to pay you for some stuff. And so he moved me into duplication, where I was duplicating cassettes for clients. So I had these huge rack of tape duplicators, and I was duplicating stuff.
Right.
And on top of that, I was also duplicating reel-to-reels for radio spots. So the studio would also cut radio spots. But we would have to, back then, you didn't send an MP3 to a radio station. You actually had to cut it on a reel-to-reel.
Right.
And so I had to duplicate that reel-to-reel, from a DAT tape. Do you remember DAT, bro? Do you remember the DAT tapes?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I remember that. That's when I was coming into the game. Dude, when I first got to New York, that was one of the first things that I saw in the studio. The owner of the label was basically trying to show me some music, and he's putting these VCR tapes into these slots, and I'm like, what the hell is this dude doing with them VCR tapes? I was bugging out because I never seen them before.
Bro, in college, that's what we were, the teacher, the professor, had us studying how to use those Alesis ADAT machines. He said, this is the future right here. And I saw this computer off in the corner. I was like, what's that? And he's like, oh, that's Pro Tools. It's never going to go anywhere.
Boy, was he wrong.
And so that's what I asked him. I was like, hey, man, do you mind if I learn Pro Tools? I said, that seems like something that'd be cool. He goes, it's only going to be used for radio stations. It's just so that they can merge tracks together and that kind of stuff. And here it became an industry standard.
That's crazy. It became a industry standard quick.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, my uncle was he was a conga player. He had a salsa band or whatever, and he really didn't make much of an effort to be an uncle to me or whatever when I was a kid. But one night he came over to my grandmother's house, like to grab some food on his way to the studio, and he's like, yo, you want to see what a real studio look like? You want to come with me to the studio? So I'm like, yeah, of course. So I hop up. It's like 9 o'clock at night. My grandma lets me go, so I go with him. This is like a Friday, Saturday night. And I didn't know that we were going to be there till the next morning. But yeah, we ended up having to sleep in the studio. Me and my cousin went with him. But we get down there, and I'm just watching what's going on. They got the piano player in his own room. The horns are all in the main cutting room, percussion, all that. They're cutting a full band at the same time. And I was noticing that every time that the producer or the engineer would rewind to go back to do an overdub or whatever, he had to bzzz and wait for the tape for everything to sync back up, and then hit record and play.
Right. And
kind of go, you know what I mean? So when I got to New York, and I noticed that every time he would rewind, they would have to like click, 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 click. You know what I'm saying? They would all have to sync up before you could start recording again, in order to get the multi-tracking or whatever. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, wait a minute. okay, this is like the new reel to reel. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was acting like I knew what I was talking about, but I didn't.
As soon as you said click, 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 bro, my brain went like, yep, I remember that. I remember that sound.
Yeah. Just get like a flashback out of nowhere, right? From being in the studio back in the day.
Flashback, bro. Yeah, it didn't stick around very long. That medium, that format didn't stick around very long. But a lot of bands recorded to it. And I remember at the studio where, I mean, a lot of my clients were, hey, man, I need to transfer this from ADAT to Pro Tools. So, you know, a lot of my, you know, I call it grunt work. You know, I was doing duplication, stuff like that. But then I started moving into stuff like that where I was duplicating or getting stuff from these old ADAT tapes transferred over to Pro Tools.
Right.
And then I think it even moved to DA88s, which was Tascam, which were like the high 8 tapes or something like that. Yeah, they're a little smaller than the VHS. Bro, that dates you right there. I mean, at least for me, it dates me, you know, to start with reel to reel, and then here I am, you know, in this industry still, you know, and I'm constantly learning because technology just keeps adding to stuff. So, you know, luckily I'm one of those guys that, you know, I love to learn. Yep. I love to get more. I remember living in Nashville, and we were getting ready to go out on the road, and I was looking for some road cases to see if I could buy some road cases, and some guy had some listed, and I called him up, went over to his place, and when I got there, bro, he had Dove Awards, he had Grammys and stuff like that on this shelf, and his studio was taken apart, and I was asking him, I was like, hey, I said, I see you have some Dove Awards, you have some Grammys up here, you know, why is your studio taken apart? And he says, well, he goes, I produced people, some really big names, some really, really big names. And he said, I refused to go digital. And he goes, and all my clients wanted me to go digital. And he goes, and I refused to learn. He goes, I wanted to do it the old-fashioned way. I still wanted to use reel-to-reel machines, and so for me, that was a lesson that, you know, kind of told me, like, wow, the moment that you refuse to move with the change of how this technology and how this music industry is moving, you're gonna die out. Yeah. And man, I just did not want that to happen to me.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. People have to understand you have to keep learning because this stuff is moving literally like every year and a half, 2 years is just buzzing, moving and
oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the hard part, man, is trying to stay up and stay updated, I guess, if you will. You know what I mean? Yeah. We were in the middle of that revolutionized state where all that stuff was just kind of coming to fruition, and now it's just like every year there's a convention.
Well, not only that, I mean, you when you look at it, I mean, a lot of the gear was reserved for, you know, studios, big studio elites. You know, you couldn't get that sound at home. And as technology has moved forward, I mean, more and more people are able to produce full albums from home. So, you know, really put the music industry, the recording industry in kind of a bind. Even this pandemic, right? You know, this pandemic shows up and, you know, changes the industry again because now even more people decided to invest in having their own home studio stuff. So like a lot of the actors that I was working with for some of these cartoons and movies and things like that, they ended up buying their own rig from home. And so my job for me, I had to make a shift and like, okay, well, how do I make an income when the voice actors are going, well, I don't need the studio anymore.
Right.
But you know, there are a couple guys that are still like, you know, I just want to be a voice actor. I don't want to be the technical guy. So I still have some of that where I'll have the guys that are just like, look, I just refuse to do all the technical. I just want to be an actor. I just want to be a voice. I don't want to have to go through and convert a file and import this file and that file. That's not what I do. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's you got to change. You got to make a change. You got to figure out what you're going to do, and, you know, keep learning. Don't ever stop learning.
Yeah. But you know what? That's one thing I will say. I think that the resiliency of a lot of the guys that have been able to stay in this business are guys that pretty much from the jump, like you, are able to roll with the punches. If somebody calls and says, "Hey, we need to do some ADSR, whatever that is, whatever it's called, we need to do some
ADR."
Yeah, ADR. We need to do some ADR, for a cartoon. Can you do that? And the first thing you ask, or the first thing I'm gonna ask is, when do you want to do that? Like a month and a half from now. Yeah, you know what? Let me look at the schedule. Oh yeah, I could do that. And then freaking for that month, my ass is on every YouTube channel that will show me how to do it. Right? Right. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
But
no. I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, like we talked about it, up at the beginning. Sometimes you say yes to something and you just figure it out.
That's it.
Some people have asked me, is that bad business? And, if I eventually get to a point where it's like, look, I cannot pull this off. This is beyond me.
Right.
I mean, of course, I'm going to call my client and say, hey, I'm sorry. You know what? I can't pull it off right now. I thought I had the gear. I thought I had the equipment. I can't. And I give them enough time so that they can reschedule or rebook. But for the most part, I don't think, man, I would say out of all the jobs that I've done, I think and I don't want to toot my own horn or brag on myself, but I think I've pretty much figured everything out and was able to pull everything off. And I don't think I've made anybody mad.
There ain't nothing wrong with admitting a win, bro. That's not bragging. In my opinion, that's not bragging. It's admitting a win. Listen, we've been resilient.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I know guys who have Grammys who have had to go work at manage a Smoothie King until things pick back up. And some guys don't ever come from that. I have a friend, I haven't seen him in a while, but a buddy of mine, Tommy Sims. I was at his place one time. We were working on a project.
Genius, bro. That guy's a genius.
Complete genius. And by the way, if you don't know who Tommy Sims is, just type Tommy Sims. What's the name of that record again?
Peace and Love.
Peace and Love. Tommy Sims, Peace and Love. Make sure you check that record out. It is
bro, I'll let you finish your story, but that album, for me, sonically, everything that he did, I mean, there was just so much, like, from an audio engineer standpoint, there would be sections of the song where there'd be no reverb, and then all of a sudden a reverb would just appear out of nowhere.
Right.
But it wasn't like it skewed you. It just kind of was like, wow, something different happened, and just it was. So from an audio engineer standpoint, even from a musician standpoint, it was a very well done album.
In my opinion,
sorry, finish your story.
No, you're good. Just to follow what you're saying too, I think in my opinion, that record is a musician's / engineer's classic album.
Yes.
Like it's the classic album that that not too many people know about.
Exactly. 'Cause everybody will go to like, hey, this is Spyro Gyra. I listen to Spyro Gyra, or I listen to this, or I listen to, oh my gosh, what's the one? Every audio engineer uses it. I've never used it, but every engineer uses this one track. It'll probably come to me later, but they use it to tune every sound system, and it's like, that's a good album. But I tune all the systems that I work on with Tommy Sims' album. Yeah, I know that album backwards and forwards, bro.
Yeah, you can't beat that. I mean, it's very hard sonically and musicality wise to beat that record.
Oh yeah.
And I lost my thought.
So you were saying about Tommy?
I was at his place. What was I saying? I was talking about being at his place and talking about. Oh yeah. So we were talking about. Guys that take a break from the business and they go do something else. And I was actually working. I had kind of taken a break. I was waiting tables. I just went to go wait tables. I was sick of the business. I was in the process of losing my marriage. I was playing arenas on the weekends. And my wife was flying out on Mondays. She was flying out Monday morning. I was flying in Monday morning, and literally we would pass each other in the airport. And during the week I was waiting tables, and on the weekend I was signing autographs and acting like a superstar that I wasn't. But I was talking to Tommy about it, and I'm like, man, I think I'm done. and this and that. And he kind of basically was just like, look, man, I recently had this conversation with my wife, and I was going to go get an executive job at Nissan. I already had it all set up. I had to connect. I was going to get the job. And then my wife comes in the room the night before I'm supposed to go have one last meeting and tells me, you can go get a regular job, but I'm going to let you know right now, you're only going to end up back in the business. And he told me the same thing. He said, you can go get another job, but chances are you're going to end up back here. Again, not to toot my own horn, but when a guy like Tommy Sims says you should be getting paid for your work and you should stay in the business, then, you kind of got to think, shit, maybe I need to stay in the business, excuse my language.
Right.
But again, it's just that resiliency, man. So it's cool because I know you. I tell this story every year to my students. So I always talk about this guy that I met and his story of how we met. And I'll tell it real quick.
Go ahead, bro.
I'll tell it real quick. So I'm on a tour with a band called Super Chick. They were a very big Christian rock band at the time. And I was out also, I was actually playing keys for an artist named KJ52. He's one of the bigger names in Christian hip hop on the CCM side, all right? I don't want anybody to be like, man, that ain't no big name. All right, calm down, relax. So anyway, so we're on tour, and it's funny because you were on Jamie's podcast, and you guys were talking about how you met, and I'm laughing while I'm listening to y'all talk about it because, for one, I have a great memory, especially when it comes to being in certain places, and then here's the other side of that whole story. And y'all missed a bunch of stuff, man. Y'all getting old on me. What's going on? So we're on the road, right? And we are in Michigan. Can't remember the town. We're in Michigan, and the guitar tech was opening the opening act. He was like the warm-up act. Yep. While people were coming in. Him and an acoustic guitar, that was it. Really cool guy, sweetheart of a guy, great musician, really good songwriter, fun songs. He kind of reminded me of like a Jack Black kind of thing, but with worship. You know what I mean? So
right.
He before the Michigan gig night, I was noticing that he was less and less taking care of his responsibilities, and a couple of us were even talking about it. What was that kid's name? The kid that did Lights, tall, skinny, lanky kid from South Dakota. I can't remember his name.
Oh my God!
You know what I'm talking about, right? He did Lights on that whole tour. Talking about. Super young cat, but he had
like a one syllable name.
Yeah. I can't remember his name right now, but he was sick. Remember, he was like young. He was like 19, 20 years old.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was, and stupid good.
He was real good. I wonder what that dude's doing now. He's probably freaking out with Beyonce. Who knows? But so me, him, and somebody else was talking in the catering room, and he's like, you know what? I think I'm gonna go talk to him about it. And I never followed back up. But anyway, so we're in Michigan, right? And we leave Michigan. We get to Minnesota. We get to Minnesota, right? We're playing Club 3 Degrees, and you weren't there yet. So
no, because I don't think I joined until Montana or something like that.
Oh no, I know exactly where you joined. I'm about to put you on. I'm gonna give you the timeline, bro. So
all right.
So Matt, they're getting ready to play. Super Chick is the closing band, and Matt is in the back. I hear Matt in the back like, "You can't be serious. You can't be serious." Matt is he was the bass player of the band, a good friend of me and Isaac. So I'm like,
oh yeah.
So I'm like, yo, what's going on with Matt? And at the time, Matt was a little firecracker. You know what I mean? So Matt's like, are you kidding me? You can't be serious. You can't be serious. Long story short, the guitar tech leaves Matt's wireless bass hookup in Michigan. In Michigan. So Matt had to play bass that night wired, and Matt loved to run around. All of them Super Chick cats. They like
that was their thing, bro. They ran around the whole thing.
Right, they ran around stage. They jumped around. So Matt is hot. So that night we get on the tour bus, And I'm like, yo, of course, to mess with Matt. And Rich, shout out my man Rich Gilliland. He's a freaking prankster, and he just know how to push buttons. So,
oh my God.
And there's a bunch of Madden wars on tour buses we could talk about. But so I go over and I'm like, yo, what happened? You good? You good? And of course, Rich comes behind me in his little subtle voice, and he's like, yeah, couldn't run around stage tonight. And he's like, dude, don't even joke around right now. So anyway, Matt ends up telling us the whole story, which we had pretty much been backstage the whole time, so we heard. So then we went, I want to say Peoria, Illinois. In fact, it was Peoria. So we play the Peoria gig, and literally like an hour later, Rich comes in the room, head down, and I'm like, yo, what's going on? And he's like trying not to laugh, head down, chuckling. And I'm like, yo, what happened? He goes, dude, this kid left Matt's wireless thing again. So mind you, that morning, the tour manager, I won't say his name, he went out with a runner that morning in Peoria. They went all the way to a Guitar Center that was God knows how far away. It was far, I know that. And they got him a new system because the one in Michigan, they hadn't gotten it. It wasn't going to be overnighted.
Right. It wasn't going to be back in time.
Yeah. So we literally were about to play the Peoria gig, and something happened where the guitar tech lost the plug part. So... Of course, at this point, Matt is like seething, bro. So we get on the tour bus.
No.
Yeah, we get on the tour bus, and we on the tour bus, whatever, playing Madden, bugging out all night. And Matt's like, it'll be good in the morning. So I'm like, oh boy. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. So anyway, we go to bed, and I get up in not the middle of the night. It was like 6:45 in the morning, really early in the morning. And I go to the bathroom, and I see a guy sleeping on the front couch of the tour bus, and I'm like, "Who the hell is that?" So, on my way back to my bunk, here comes the tour manager, and I'm like, "Yo, who's that sleeping on the couch?" He goes, "Oh, that's the new guitar tech / monitor guy." So I'm like, "Yo, what happened to Andrew?" I think Andrew was his name. I won't say his last name, but I'm like, what happened to Andrew? He goes, yeah, we dropped Andrew off this morning, and that guy, his name is Isaac. He's going to be the new guitar tech. So I'm like, yo, where we at? He goes, oh, we're at O'Hare. Because you flew in like crazy early in the morning, right?
Oh, yeah, bro. It was crazy early in the morning.
Yeah.
It was...
The tour manager. So I asked the tour manager, like, we're at the airport. He goes, yeah, we literally pulled up here. I woke Andrew up, handed him his ticket, and told him that his flight left in an hour. It was like 5 a.m, and he basically had to get all his stuff off the bus and run to the gate. And I'm like, dude, you made him like, you for real? He goes, oh, I'm not kidding. The only reason why that guy's sleeping on the couch is because I want to make sure we clean. We get the bus driver to clean out the bunk. And that was how me and you started. That was the beginning of a brotherhood, right?
I had no idea it was that bad. I seriously.
Yeah.
And I think part of when I joined on, I think Dave told me, he like very seriously was like, take care of these packs. Don't ever leave anything. Don't blah, blah, blah. And I didn't even know why, but I mean, that's why. To me, my mentality was always like, look, I don't pay for this stuff. This stuff doesn't belong to me. I am here as a representative of each of the bands and the members there. If I forget something or leave something behind, I then affect the next show, or I then affect how people can work the following day. And then also, my mentality is also, now I've affected how people get to see the show. I think it was in your podcast where you talked about James Holloway about the drummer. Yeah. Giving the show, right? So for me, that's kind of as the tech or sound guy, even if I'm running sound, that's my mentality. Is like, I'm here to produce something that everybody needs to enjoy, to create an experience. And I think out of the, was it almost 4 years, 3 years with Seventh Day Slumber, and we were out on the road 200 and something days out of the year.
Jeez.
I had never left anything behind. I had never forgotten any piece of gear. I made it a point to make sure that I had all the numbers either on a chart or something of how many microphones I had, how many of each one, inventory. So when I packed up every night, we never left anything.
Right.
Because again, my mentality is, I don't want to affect how people work. So, I want to make sure that I do my best. And so I'm just going to say it. That's a gem right there.
It is.
Do your best and give it your all. Don't shortchange it because, people are watching.
Yep.
People are watching. And I think because of that work ethic and because of what I had done, I think, it opened a lot of doors for me.
Yeah.
A lot of opportunity for me because I'm a person of integrity and I'm a person of, want to make sure that things get done right. So.
And I always tell.
I got serious there.
No, you got it, man. I always tell students too. It says there's a strike one rule in this business.
Yeah.
I've never seen Andrew out on the road ever since. And you know how this business is. Like, we would pass each other in airports sometimes. Like, yo, where you going? Ah.
Oh yeah. I mean,
like little kids. Like, yo, where you going? I'm going here. Ah.
Yep, that's exactly the way it was. Oh my gosh, you're here. Festivals were just crazy as well, because then you'd run. It's like it was a huge reunion.
Dude, music festivals. You know what I hated? I think we all hated and hate music festivals because of how hot it is in the summertime, and you got two places to chill, right? There's only two places to chill, outside or on the bus. So obviously you're gonna be on the bus with the AC and trying not to be outside. But there was
but try being in a black bus when it's 100 and something outside and the AC's cranked and it doesn't feel like it's doing anything.
And I'm sorry, but that truck bus that you guys toured on for a while, ooh, my God. Oh my God, bro. I don't know how you did it. First of all, I took one trip on that bus and that tour bus was so loud, bro. I didn't sleep the entire night. Between the noise.
I think I had only been on it, twice. And then after that, I think Joe ended up getting an actual bus.
Oh, yeah, because when you left with them is when they had the red tour bus, right?
No, they had they had a black bus.
Was it the one they got from Chuck?
And then from the black bus, we moved to the red bus.
Yeah. You're right. No, I took a trip on that truck bus one time, bro, because I had to come back to Nashville. And
you and I both were on that truck bus. And that's when I stayed in Nashville because we're going to get ready to go out. But we all went. Seventh Day was going to go back to Nashville, and I guess Super Chick or something like that. We're going to stay out. And I think you and I caught a ride back to Nashville.
So you were on. Okay, so you were on that trip back with me. Yeah, because I came back.
Yep.
Because I was basically.
There was a flame. There was a flame that shot out of one of the pipes.
That's right. Yo, listen, I know people are listening to this right now. These guys are reminiscing. This ain't no podcast. Yeah, that's right, yo. And then my man's brother was
the driver.
Yeah, what was that brother's name? Big dude. Big Mexican cholo cat was Joe's brother, right? That was his older brother.
It was Joe's brother, but I can't remember his name.
My man used to be hitting the oh my gosh.
Yeah, the J brake.
Yeah, that bus. It was basically like, what would you say? That was like an 18-wheeler that they somehow added
yeah, it was like the cabin of a diesel with like a passenger bus or something like that on the back end of it. But yeah, obviously the front end had to be strong enough to tow the trailer with all the gear and stuff. So yeah,
that bus would break down. Remember when one of my fondest memories of that tour is when we were in Fargo, North Dakota, and remember that it was like 25 below, and the guitars ended up freezing, and they had to wait.
Freezing.
And then the one bus Oh, it was actually Seventh Day Slumber's bus. It had all the audio and everything, and y'all were like an hour and a half late, and it took like 2 hours to set up the audio. So y'all pulled up to to Fargo. Y'all set that audio system up in like an hour and a half, and then somebody goes, "We can't even play these freaking guitars for like another hour." And we're like, "What are you talking about? They're frozen." And Jeremy's like, "Dude, literally, there's like if I touch that string, it's gonna snap on me." And they ended up having to remember that they had to change all the strings out. That was a crazy. And then on the way out, we're like 25 miles down the road, and the road manager gets a call and says, "These guys' bus won't turn on, so they're not gonna meet us in the next city until tomorrow." And I think we had already left, right? Yeah, we were like 25 miles down the road.
Was that the New York trip where we ended up in New York or something?
No, that was after. Because I remember you telling me y'all were on that tour bus going through 42nd, and I'm like, how the hell did y'all get a tour bus through 42nd? You're like, he made it happen. I don't know how we did. 42nd in time in a freaking tour bus. I'm surprised y'all didn't get like pulled over and kicked off that bus.
Listen, just when people think that, it's all glamour and everything, realize it's not all glamorous. There are some really dark sides to traveling and touring, and I mean, there are some stories there.
You know what's funny? Actually, I'm glad you went there, because I wanted to ask you about. Now, obviously, you ran front of house. You were the head of audio when you were touring with Seventh Day Slumber. Not for me, because obviously I know. But what does it look like? Break down the job, like your job, like.
Well, it depends on what part of the job you were talking about, because by the end of it, I was the tour manager, road manager, production, and bus driver.
Right.
So my day consisted of advancing shows. So as a tour manager, you're overseeing the entire tour. So if you had opening bands, I would have to take care of the opening bands, make sure they had hotels for the opening bands, make sure there was food for them, all that, basically the entire tour. So the headlining band plus the opening act. As the road manager, there were days that we didn't do what we called tour dates, or the collective tour. Seventh Day Slumber would have its own dates that they would do. So then I would have to advance those shows and take care of those shows and make sure that all the needs were met for that show. So
you were doing like 10 jobs in one, pretty much.
Right. And then as far as audio production was, my responsibility was to make sure that all the gear was in good working order. I would solder and fix everything. So that's a tip right there. Learn how to fix electrical gear. Don't just assume that you can buy it, because sometimes, like you said earlier, they had to drive hours to go to find a guitar center somewhere just to get a wireless pack. I fixed everything. I took everything apart, would clean it down, fix it, rewire it, and if it got to a point where I couldn't fix it, that's when I asked to replace it.
Right.
So as the audio guy, that's what I'm doing. I'm taking care of all that stuff, making sure that it's loaded into the venue properly, loaded back into the trailer properly, and like I said earlier, inventory, make sure that I had everything back in that trailer before we ever left. As the bus driver, I think, and I will admit this, I overextended myself by adding the bus driver duties to myself as well, because I was the first guy off the bus.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was getting to. I was
the road manager, tour manager. So I'd have to meet everybody, do all that kind of stuff, unload the trailer, set up all the gear, load it all back in, and then, sleep for like an hour or two or however much I could, and get back on the road and head to the next city.
Yeah. I'm always telling my students that the audio guys on any tour, the first guys on the bus, the first guys off the bus,
first guys off,
and the last guys on the bus.
And that's another thing that, that I would like to encourage to people that are ever looking at this job is that job is very important, because you can really ruin the experience for people, because what ends up happening is you're the first person that they meet, and what they'll say is like, man, that band was terrible. Well, why was the band terrible? Oh man, their manager was just a jerk or whatever. And so I'm a representative of whoever I'm working with, and I have to make sure that I put the best foot forward, so that way they could never say anything bad about the band or anybody, because we made it as pleasurable as possible. So, keep that in mind. And I think I even heard you say this in your podcast before, or maybe it's just you and I talking, but the way you treat people, is going to be a determining factor of if and when you're going to be asked back. And if people enjoy working with you, and they'll have you out as much as possible. But treat everybody with kindness, man. Really, and it's about working together to accomplish a goal, which is putting together an amazing show, or whatever it is. I mean, so
I wanted to go back to that point, because that's a gem right there, right? Treat people with respect and kindness. I was saying, I think on a rant the other day, I can't remember where I posted this, but I was talking about how it's important to just be good to people, whether you like them or not, because in this business, right, it's about relationships.
Oh yeah, that was on, I think, your first podcast. I think in your introduction, you talked about you sometimes will work with people that you don't like.
Yeah. And somebody commented and said, yeah, I love this, blah, blah, on Facebook. And then somebody commented under that and was like, no, be true to yourself. Listen, here's a gem for everybody listening to this. There is no true to yourself if you're not eating. Period. Yeah. If you can't pay your bills, you being true to yourself, you're going to be true to yourself sitting on a sidewalk somewhere, God forbid. But being true to yourself is doing what you have to do to be successful. And sometimes, I mean, I don't know about you, Isaac, but there have been plenty of times that I've literally fallen into projects. And I'm talking about phone calls from people that I definitely do not like and did not like. Hey man, what are you doing? Oh no, just chilling. Thinking maybe they want to go to lunch or something. Dude, listen, I'm busy with blah blah project. I got this A&R calling me about this and that. I thought you'd be perfect. Yeah, tell me, give me a call. Next thing you know, it's a $4,000 project. That's happened to me 3 or 4 times. I think the most I made was like $4,000, and it was a guy that I definitely did not like, and for good reason. But anytime I saw him, hey man, how you doing? What's going on? I would, you remember little things about people, and then you bring them up when you see them. Hey man, how's you? What's that? What's up with that little puppy you got? Oh yeah, and it's and I mean, there were definitely a lot of times in that industry where I was true to myself, and I lost a lot of work and money because of it, and it was worth it. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, guys, this is just a gem. You got to treat people good. I mean, it's even biblical, right? The Bible even says you could be entertaining angels, so you never know. Yeah. So that's good, man.
Listen. I mean, I know you have too. You've worked with the most really difficult people. I think my first experience with a difficult producer really scared me, because I thought we were doing really good work, and all of a sudden the guy just turns over to me and just lashes out. And I was like, I had no idea what was going on. And, my first reaction is to, what can I do to make this better? And what ended up happening is, my mentor, I ended up speaking to the guy and said, listen, Isaac's a gem. Don't ever treat him like that again. He's there to help you go after the vision that you're going for. There's no need to yell. And after that experience, I think I've only had one other experience with a client, and he literally was just cussing me out and everything. And at the end of the day, I remember what it was. He was cussing me out over, since I do radio spots and stuff like that, and here's a big one for me. I'm talking about integrity. And so there was some music that he wanted me to use that I didn't have a license for on for me to put on a radio spot. And he just kept saying, what does it matter? No one's ever going to know. And I said, listen, I go, musicians work hard to create these things. I am not stealing other people's music. And he says, well, I've worked 2 years, creating these templates that's based on this music, and you need to get the license. I said, listen, I can't afford the license, but I can offer you this. And, the entire time, the guy was just yelling and screaming, like, who cares? Nobody will ever know. No one's ever going to hear these spots anyways. I said, listen, I will not go against my integrity and do something that's not right. And I think one of the most important lessons was my son was sitting there next to Isaiah, was sitting next to me hearing the phone call, and he was like, Dad, that guy was just digging into you. But what he heard at the end of the day, at the end of the phone call, I did not give in to the guy. And I told him that my integrity was way more valuable to me. And I said, I will not move this direction. I said, we'll figure something out. And eventually, what I ended up doing is I went to bat for the client. I contacted the music library and I said, hey, look, this is what I need. What can we work out so that I have a proper license and that I'm licensing the music that I'm using? And we worked out a deal. And I contacted the client back and I said, listen, I worked out a deal just for you with the music library. And this is what we worked out so that it was fair and that we all are on the up and up and that we have integrity. And the guy legitimately just was like, he was floored. He was like, wow. He goes, you went to fight for me so that I could get what I needed. And at the end of the day, I made the guy happy. And, he even said, I'm willing to pay for blah, 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 blah. And so it's like, okay, great. So there was no need for me to lose and I know every circumstance is different and all that kind of stuff, but at least for me, I kept my cool. I was willing to stand up for my integrity, and I was not going to do something that I work in this industry. Why am I going to hurt fellow musicians, by stealing away their licensing?
And that stuff, in my opinion, in some way, shape, or form, it all comes back around, right? So what do you, it's not worth, a couple $100? It's just not worth it. I was talking on the music industry gems episode, I think it was episode 3, and I was talking about how not all money is good money, right? I actually had one of my students ask me about it. He texted me about it, and he was like, "Yo, will you break that down to me?" So we just texting back and forth for a while, and it just kind of sat with me. The thought sat with me, and I'm like, damn, you know what? That's something that I need to make sure that I'm preaching more, because if a 17-year-old kid is curious about that, then that's something that definitely needs to be pushed, and hopefully you can second it. You did that road gig for a while. Oh, wait a minute. Ooh, wait a minute. First of all, okay. I just had a revelation here. So there's a gem, right? Once again, Isaac, can you confirm that not all money is good money? Yes. That's okay. True. Now let's talk about the Ed Sheeran situation. Oh man. Okay. Now listen, before we get into that though, I want to preface that by saying that is the epitome of gauging whether the money is worth it, right? So I'll let you tell this story, and then we'll kind of bring that gem back around, because I think ultimately it is a gem, and I think that this is the epitome of what we're talking about when we say that. So
you had connected me. I think it was Michael Droke.
It was Mike Rapole, incredible guitar player.
Mike Rapole. Yes. So you had connected me with him, and he had connected me with somebody that I was going to start doing monitors for Babyface. Right. And the guy got back to me and said, hey, listen, we don't tour enough, blah, blah, blah. So I had agreed to do another tour with Seventh Day Slumber. But after I had agreed, literally, I think it was almost the same day, I got a phone call from another gentleman who said, hey, I got this new artist. His name is Ed Sheeran.
And it was through that whole thing with Mike, right?
Pay you.
Right.
Yeah. And matter of fact, I reached out to Mike and I told him, I was like, bro, I said, I have a story for you. I was like, so it goes, I get sent all this information to take on the tour. So it was around the time when Ed Sheeran had just literally was breaking in the U.S. And so his guy that was running sound for him, I think, was going to go out on a wedding or something. And so they had this like a run of like a month or month and a half, and they needed somebody to fill in. So I got offered the position. So they send me all the stuff, man. We were going to do the Tonight Show. We were going to be, just like on all this stuff. And they broke down the money to me, and it was good money. The only problem was I just felt like it wasn't the right thing to do, especially canceling on the other tour. So, and this, that touring, doing the other tour was, there was obviously, it was really tough. It was really hard because, like I said, I was doing road managing, tour managing, bus driving, and audio production. And, I was looking for something simpler, but, it was kind of the same thing. They were, I was going to be driving Ed Sheeran around. I was going to be at that time, he was traveling van and trailer. It was a passenger van. So he didn't even have a tour bus yet. So I was going to drive the van and trailer. I was going to manage him and be his front of house guy.
Yeah.
So kind of the same situation.
Right.
Again, money was good, but at the end of the day, I had to sit back and go, where does this put me and my family? What does this say, and obviously, wow, if I would have taken the gig, Ed Sheeran, wow, he blew up. But at the end of the day, for me, saying no, yes, it was tough to say no to that gig. I ended up going out on tour with Seventh Day Slumber and had some really amazing experiences. And not only that, but that's what led me to kind of coming off the road and being a dad. And just kind of being, it's time for me I'm done. I'm going to be a dad now. And not when I say dad now, it's not like my wife was pregnant. My son was going to turn 18, and I wanted to be there for his life experiences. And to me, that was more important. And so I decided to come off the road and be dad and be a husband. And man, if I would not have taken that, if I would not have taken that route, I don't think I would have ever done stuff for Disney. Well, possibly, but when you're working with a big star like that, you're doing certain things, but there's always this weird contract stuff that always goes on. But I wouldn't have met the people that I met. I wouldn't have been able to do the stuff that I've done, the doors opening to me, and now leading to the point where, I got my own studio. I got my own business that I'm operating.
And I'll say this, man, just not even as an audio guy, just as a man, that's one thing that I really love and appreciate about you is your integrity. And to bring it back around to the not all money is good money, you had told me, we were talking about this in depth, and you had mentioned how there were two obstacles. Number one, you had already said yes to the Seventh Day Slumber thing. Excuse me, one second. But also that your kids were on the back of your mind the whole time, and that you were already itching to get away from the road to be with your kids. And that's what I mean by, like, had you decided, let's say you decided to do the Ed Sheeran thing, and had that turned into, who knows, let's say 10 years worth of work.
Yeah.
Is that what's the value between, making all that money and missing out on 10 years of super important timing? I mean, you have a daughter, she's an amazing kid, but you got off the road and were itching to get off the road, at a very important time in your son's life, and more, I think, in your daughter's life, you know, in her time. And there's not a lot of guys that are willing to do that. I got off, you know my story about Morocco, right? Do you know that story?
I don't think I heard about it.
So again, just wrapping back around to this gem of not all money's good money. So I'm on the road with Madge. We're on the road for 2.5 years, right? And I start doing things with KJ. I play my first arena with KJ, and the day before, I want to say 2 days before, we played that gig, Madge had called me and said, "Yo, I got a gig in Palm Beach." And this was actually our festival, and it was dope because Marion played that festival, Ashley Simpson. There was a lot of big acts, right? So I'm like, yo, what's like, yeah, we going. Yeah, it is what, like, yeah, I ain't got nothing on the books. So I tell him, yeah, without thinking, right? Of course, because first of all, it's Madge. Second of all, why would I not play that gig? So, So the next day, KJ, he calls me. He says, "Yo, we got invited to go play a gig in Morocco. We're gonna be hosted by the Prince or the King. I think it was the Prince of Morocco or the King, some royalty thing or whatever. And basically, they're gonna fly us and a couple other bands out, and we're gonna spend a few days up there. By the way, the money's gonna be double, and somebody from his manager's team, somebody from Teresa's team couldn't make it, so there's an extra flight. Your wife can come, like, if you want, we'll give, you know, like." So of course I'm like, damn, how am I now gonna go tell my wife about this? So I go tell my wife about it, and she's like, "Well, what you gonna do? Like, what you gonna do? Oh my God, we're going to Morocco. What are you gonna do?" And I'm like, "Nah, we can't go to Morocco. I gave my word." So I know that if I would have called Madge and said, "Bro, please, bro, like, I'm gonna take my wife to Morocco, bro. Like, come on," he would have probably just been like, "Yeah, no problem." You know what I mean? He would have been, "That's my dude. That's my dude." Right. But I thought to myself, I'll be honest, the Palm Beach joint would have been $350, right? That was all expensive, of course. It's a one-off, so it would have been $350. Would have been on stage for 45 minutes, or would have went to Morocco and made, you know, $600-700 to be there for a few days, all expenses paid, everything, you know, like royalty basically. So I decide not to go. I call KJ and I'm like, "Yo, nah, I don't think." He's like, "You sure? Why don't you just call Madge?" I'm like, no. So I decided to say no, right? And while we at the arena, guess who come walking in the arena? Madge. And I'm laughing because we talking or whatever. I'm not saying nothing, but I'm laughing inside. So anyway, Madge ends up leaving after the set, and we had to stay to go sign and do all that. And my wife's like, "Yo, imagine if you would have not said nothing to KJ or Madge, and then somehow that I said, that's what I'm telling you. That's why I told my wife, I'm like, that's why you cannot play those, like, you cannot play games like that here, because it's such a small fishbowl. That would have been so awkward, and it would have messed my relationship up with Madge over what, an extra $300-400. Like, I probably in my time in the Christian music industry, I probably made 20-30 grand with Madge, touring and between touring and producing. And imagine if I would have, I literally could have ruined my relationship with Madge, and that would have sucked. That's like he's one of my best friends in the whole wide world. But yeah, man. So we meet you on that tour bus, and after the first night, I get back on the bus, and Matt looks at me and he goes, "Best in-ear mix ever." And I looked at him and I said, "Yo," because we didn't have in-ears. They were the only ones that had in-ears. We were using wedges.
Right.
And I looked at Matt and I was like, "Yo, not for nothing, bro. That is the best wedge mix I ever gotten." And as I'm saying it, Jamie comes up the steps. And guys, I know that some of y'all that are watching this know Jamie. Most of y'all that are watching this probably don't. I don't know. our friend Jamie Davis is a master drummer. He's toured all around the globe with tons of huge Christian artists, but he's also very he's very honest. Yeah, he's very honest, and he's very he's this big black dude, but he's not scary. He's like a funny honest,
right.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, oh boy, here this dude coming. He's like, you talking about the wedge mix? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, dude, was it just me? I'm like, no, it was amazing. So literally, after the first night, bro, you pretty much had us. You had us at mix number 1, I guess you could say. But yeah, man, I don't know.
Well,
yeah, I'm it's cool, man.
You know, that tour, I learned a lot too on that tour. I don't know if I should say this or not, but I'm going to say it, and you can edit
come
it
on,
out.
man. You already know I'm all about it. So come on with it.
That was the tour that I learned about. So what was happening was, since I was not only was doing monitors for you guys, but I was also mixing front of house for all the opening acts. And that's when I learned that the engineer for the headlining act was limiting my mixes. And basically what that meant was that he didn't want my mixes to supersede the headlining act, which I understand.
And that's common practice too.
But I remember him taking me aside to a room, and he was telling me, he's like, look, he goes, everybody's raving about your mixes. He goes, I can't have you outdo me.
Job security, Doc, job security.
And keep in mind, all the opening acts were on an analog console. I didn't have all the compressors and all the outboard gear and stuff like that. And the headlining act had a Yamaha M7. It was at that time was one of the top of the line touring consoles. And I was doing all the opening acts on an analog console, and we were sending 2 channels out into the main console. And he was limiting. He had put a limiter and tweaked some EQ and stuff like that. So it almost kind of like he was trying to sabotage the mix. And I think when I discovered that, that's when Joe went up to him and like, you will never do this again.
I don't even remember who the front of house guy for Super Chick was on that tour. Who was it? Oh, wait.
Yeah.
De la Raza, right?
I mean, he went on to obviously bigger and better things. I mean, he's worked with some amazing people.
Wait, it was the road manager. Yeah, dude, listen, I completely forgot. That's right, he was mixing front of house for them, and he was the road manager. Yep. Yeah, well, obviously, he went on to do bigger things, but he tried to.
But I remember him pulling me aside and saying, I can't have you outdo my mix. He goes, especially since you're running on an analog console. I was like, wow. I mean, it was a compliment and a kind of a slap in the face. But
well, he tried really on that tour too. I had a friend pull up. I can't remember where we were at. I don't remember where we were, but a friend of mine was in town, and we happened to be in town. So I told her, hey, come by. I'll introduce you to whoever's up, because it was kind of late. So she comes on the bus, and we're sitting on the bus just chopping it up, me, her, and her brother. And they get off the bus, they leave. Well, the next morning, that guy pulls me aside. He's like a big dude. He was all big and loud, Italian dude.
Yeah.
And he pulled me aside, and he's like telling me, dude, you breaking rules, you can't be blah, blah, blah. And I just said to him, like, first of all, number one, I'm sorry if I broke some rule that I didn't know about. I've been on 15 tour buses, and this is the first time I'm hearing that you can't bring people on the bus. We'll talk off air as to why that was a problem. I think we might have talked about this before, but I ain't gonna go too deep into that. But I just told him, I said, look, first of all, I apologize, number one. And number two, deflate your chest because I'm definitely not going to let you puff your chest up on me. And he immediately, his shoulders drop, and he's like, he went from, hey, man, you can't be about to, no, I get it, man. I'm just saying you can. I'm like, bro, don't ever puff your chest up when you talk to me, bro. And then he ended up telling me it wasn't him. It was somebody on the bus that was complaining about me. And the person I brought on the bus didn't even go to the back. The door opened up, and the person I was complaining heard me and that person talking in the front of the bus and was basically upset that people was on the bus. The people that came to see me ain't even know that them people existed. Oh, Christian rock singers thinking that they're bigger than just because a couple thousand people know.
You know what I do
they
have to say, bro? I do have to echo something that you said in one of your earlier podcasts, which was going to Nashville. When you went to Nashville, you thought you were going to be surrounded by brethren. Bro, I have to echo that because I thought the exact same thing. Now, obviously, I wasn't on an artist side, being production and all that kind of stuff. But I literally, it blew my mind.
It's crazy, right? For those nobody knows this, you know this. A couple of people only know this, but Liquid's working on another single, first time in a long time. And I'm basically, a lot of people have been asking me where I've been, and I've been getting a lot of comments on YouTube and emails from people I don't even know that are now listening to the podcast. And so the song kind of just breaks down that answer, where I've been and what I've been doing and blah, blah. But I'm having this hard time because the last 16 bars of the song, I kind of basically gave that negative part of the Christian music industry. I gave it 4 bars, maybe 8. And I'm like, nah, I want to move on from there. And I just keep going back in the writing. It keeps going back to talk more about this, talk more about this, talk more. And I'm trying not to, especially today I had this thought, right? Because of my this day job that I have now, I'm like, yo, I don't want to mess around and get somebody downtown upset. You know what I mean? Because God forbid you speak up about any Christian organization that ain't doing right. But yeah, that's definitely a thing. And people are going to hear more and more about that as we go through this journey. I'm going to have to write a freaking book someday.
And I think one thing that we, that I can say is, look, we're all flawed people. We all make mistakes.
That's it.
We're not. Sometimes we don't show the best of ourselves. When it comes to business dealings or money, and it's just like church, right? Sometimes people look at church and say, the church hurt me and stuff like that. Really, the church didn't. It was a person who was supposed to be representing Christ at the time, and again, you gotta remember, they're a flawed individual, they're a hurt person, and you either move on from those people and move on to the next thing, or you try to mend a relationship that's there. There have been many a relationship in that industry where I could have been really hurt. I really could. And I chose to mend the relationship for me. Again, this is completely for me, but just mending the relationship.
Yeah. That's good, man. That's a gem right there. That's a gem right there, man. These people are people, and as long as you go in with that expectation that you're dealing with people and not somebody that's holier than you. I mean, that's why a lot of people, when pastors mess up, that's why a lot of people leave the church. But it's like, fam, that man ain't God. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. And people hold a lot of these pastors up to this standard, and some of these pastors eat it up. So they not telling people, yo, don't look at me that way. They so busy eating it up. Then when
didn't just Justin Bieber's pastor, something happened there or something like that?
Carl Lentz.
Yeah, I mean, we like, you're right, bro. We put these people up on a pedestal. We really shouldn't be putting them up on a pedestal. We should be putting Christ up on a pedestal, and these people are just supposed to be servants. The moment that we turn a pastor into a rock star, we've gone too
And you
far.
don't really ever hear, you don't ever really hear
pastor.
pastors telling people to chill with all that. You know what I mean? Especially not the
True, no, and you're right.
right, not the ones that are in the limelight. You never hear them telling people like, "Yo, don't look at me this way." They almost, it's weird. It's like they eat it up.
Yeah, but again, I mean, it's just a flawed individual, and what we figure out is that, certain what am I trying to say? Certain accolades or whatever give them a sense of power. So then they try to push themselves into this position of power, and they're power hungry, and it reveals something in their character. Now look, I talk about my integrity, and that's something that's very important to me. But at the end of the day, I have my flaws. I'm not a perfect person. I mean, I'm sure I have my days where I'm a terrible husband and I'm a terrible dad. But I know that I'm weak, and I know that I've missed it or missed the mark. And the most important thing for me is to, again, this is how I live, is to go and fix those. If I did something wrong, to either my son or my daughter, I go right back and just say, hey, Dad missed it. Even my wife, hey, sorry, your husband missed it this time. Let's fix it. Let's move forward and just keep going on. I mean, I've been with my wife now for 28 years. Bro, I've been with my wife longer than I was with my parents. Right. I've been married longer than I was single.
Wow. That's heavy, right? You think about it.
Right. But when you think about it, the relationship that we have, I mean, not everything was always perfect, but yet we were willing to work through each of the issues and each of the problems. And, there were nights where I'd sleep on the couch and, said something that I probably shouldn't have said, or, that kind of thing. But hey, here we are. Yep. We worked through each of those issues. It's just, and I don't want to get political, but I mean, like, people, man, just love one another.
That's
man.
a grown ass man gem right there.
Just love people. I don't care what you think. We can agree to disagree.
That's it.
It's okay. I mean, it's like I said. I was talking about marriage. You're taking two people from two different families that are brought up two different ways, and you're trying to meld something together. And we as a people, man, we all have different ideas. We were all brought up differently. Look, man, just love everybody. Love one another. Do good, to be kind to each other. And man, we'll get through this. We'll get through. We can make it through anything, as long as we do this thing together.
I like it. Man, we might have to make this a part 8 joint. Nah, look, this is probably the longest one I've done, but so what, man? I'm listen. Like we were talking about before, right? In the pre-show, we were just talking about how beautiful it is that we don't need some network or some record label to give us a platform now. Yeah. So if it would have been a 5-hour joint, it would have been a 5-hour joint. But yeah, we're gonna wrap it up here. Dude, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on all social media. I'm on TikTok.
You on TikTok?
Under Isaac Tense. Yeah, I'm on TikTok, bro.
Okay.
I had to do it, bro. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. You can find.
Nah, I'm laughing with you, bro.
I told you, you got to move with technology, bro. You got to move with technology.
You preaching to me. You absolutely right. We got to move with technology for sure. What's the hand?
I am meeting so many artists on that site. I mean, it's crazy because there are so many people that are hungry to do music, and we live in a time right now where, I mean, distribution of music is, like you just finished saying, the need for a record label and all that kind of stuff is what?
Yep. Now,
really, what? I mean, a record. The only thing a record label is a bank that fronts the money for you to be an artist to do what you want to do. And back in the day when they had, they were the ones getting your single on the radio stations, and they were the ones out there promoting and all that kind of stuff. Cool. But man, you have everything at your fingertips right now. I mean, you literally, these kids that are putting together this, like I said, I'm meeting so many artists on TikTok that are literally putting stuff together, and then they're getting their stuff on Spotify, and they're streaming and SoundCloud and all this kind of stuff. And there's a lot of really good music out there.
Yeah, there is.
And a lot of them are doing really, really well on their own without the record labels. So don't be conned into believing that you need a record label to do the gift and the talent that you have, and the words and the poetry that you need to share with the world. I don't think you need a record.
It's true.
For it.
So what's the hand? Is the handle the same for everything? TikTok, Instagram, all of that?
I think it's Isaac 1073. You can either look for me under Isaac 1073 or Isaac Moreno. I think I don't remember all this stuff. Look, I use the platforms. I don't promote myself a lot on the platforms.
Follow the at 10 Second Gems Instagram, and you will find him on there. And then you can, and also on YouTube, I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna put up a print screen of everything for you. So, cool. Dude,
there we go. See, technology.
Seriously, it's 11:08, and I know that you're probably tired, but I appreciate your time as always, brother. I love you to death.
Yeah. No. Yeah, and I'm here for any of your listeners, man. Yeah, when they contact me or whatever, ask me anything. I'm an open book. I'm an open book. I love teaching.
Get the follows up on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and everything else. Hey, real quick, before we wrap, before I let everybody go and do all the sign out and all that, I wanted to ask, what was the last Pixar thing you worked on? Was it the Boss Baby Netflix thing?
So, wasn't Pixar, that was DreamWorks. Okay. So, DreamWorks, the last thing I worked on for them was a show called Wizards. Which is a Netflix series. But it goes along with, I worked on Troll Hunters, Three Below, and Wizards. So they're kind of a series that all tie in together. Then we worked on the Boss Baby stuff. And like I said earlier, the video game was Arkham Asylum. All the Lego Star Wars stuff, all the Lego Star Wars video games, cartoons. The
Troll Hunters was good.
The voices that
I really like Troll Hunters.
A lot of people really liked the story. That was Del Toro is just the last name.
Benicio.
Yeah, so he's really good at writing.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was real good. Well, anyway, guys, listen.
Matter of fact, the guy that did that voice, or the voices on there, he was on. His name is Victor Rader Wexler, and he was on Lois and Clark. You remember the old Superman TV show, Lois and Clark?
The TV series.
He was on that. He was on that show. He was on Seinfeld.
Really?
He was on American Dad. I forgot what character he played on American Dad. But yeah, cool guy.
Dope.
Yeah.
Dope.
One of the guys.
All right. Well, yeah, we got to wrap this. Listen, if it's okay with you, we got to have you come back. There is a whole list of things that we still need to talk about. Also, hey, real quick. Also, your son designed the 10 Second Gems logo. So that 10 Second Gems logo that you see was designed by Isaac's son. His name is Zaya, and I'm gonna put his Instagram up to it. I believe it's Zaya the rapper, Zaya the rapper. So. Make sure you check out Zaya, especially if you need a logo. Dude raps, he does videos, all kinds of crazy stuff. Also, I want to shout out my man Scott here in Tennessee. He has a barbecue business called Tennessee Smokehouse. I think it's TN Smokehouse. Listen, if you're in Nashville, Knoxville, Chattanooga, and you need barbecue catered, man, holla at my man. He's not paying me to say this. He don't even know I'm saying this. I just wanted to shout my guy out. He's an incredible barbecue master type dude. and his brisket is next level. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening to 10 Second Gems. If you're on YouTube watching this, remember that we are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, your grandmother's podcast, AM radio. Just literally search 10 Second Gems and you'll find the podcast on there. If you'd rather watch it on YouTube, that's good, because I'm trying to get them YouTube checks too. So anyway, guys, thanks again for listening. We will see you on the next podcast. Wear a mask. Don't forget, be safe, take care of each other, love one another, and let the government do whatever the hell is it they like to do when we're not looking. All right, talk to y'all later.